Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to an in-depth exploration of Islam in Algeria. This comprehensive overview delves into the rich tapestry of Muslim life in this North African nation, tracing the religion's history, demographics, daily practices, challenges, and societal dynamics. We'll journey through time to understand how Islam took root in Algeria, examine current statistics on the Muslim population, and paint a picture of everyday Islamic life across the country. We'll also tackle the complex issues facing Muslims in Algeria today and address the unique landscape of religious tensions in a predominantly Muslim society. All right, let's zoom in on the history of Islam in Algeria. It's a fascinating story that spans over a millennium and has shaped the country's identity in profound ways. So picture this, it's the 7th century and the Arab-Muslim conquests are in full swing. Around 642 CE, Arab armies start pushing westward from Egypt into North Africa. They reach what's now Algeria by about 680 CE. At this time, the region is inhabited mainly by Berber tribes with some Byzantine outposts along the coast. Now, the spread of Islam in Algeria wasn't an overnight thing. It took place in waves over several centuries. The first wave was mostly military conquests. The Umayyad general Uqba ibn Nafi led campaigns in the region, founding the city of Kairouan in Tunisia, which became a major center for the spread of Islam in North Africa. But here's the thing, the Berbers didn't just roll over. Many tribes resisted fiercely. Some converted to Islam, but then led rebellions against Arab rule. The most famous of these was led by a woman named Kahina in the late 7th century. Over time, though, Islam started to take root. By the 8th century, many Berber tribes had converted. They weren't just passive recipients, though. Berber Muslims played a crucial role in spreading Islam further west and even into Spain. The 9th and 10th centuries saw the rise of Islamic dynasties with Berber origins, like the Rustamids and later the Fatimids. These helped to further entrench Islam in the region. The Almoravids and Almohads, Berber dynasties from what's now Morocco, also had a big impact in the 11th and 12th centuries. Now, it's important to note that the spread of Islam wasn't just about religion. It brought huge cultural changes. Arabic gradually became the dominant language, although Berber languages persisted in many areas. Islamic law and customs reshaped social structures and daily life. By the time we get to the Ottoman period in the 16th century, Islam is thoroughly established in Algeria. The Ottomans further reinforced Islamic institutions, building mosques and religious schools. So when the French colonized Algeria in the 19th century, they encountered a deeply Islamic society. In fact, Islam became a rallying point for resistance against colonial rule. Religious leaders often played key roles in the independence movement. After independence in 1962, Islam was declared the state religion of Algeria. But that's where our modern story begins, with debates about the role of Islam in the new nation that continue to this day. It's a complex history, full of conquests, conversions, rebellions, and cultural mixing. Islam in Algeria isn't just an imported religion. It's been shaped by local cultures and circumstances over more than 1,000 years. All right, let's dive into the numbers and demographics of Islam in Algeria today. It's a pretty striking picture, and the statistics really highlight just how dominant Islam is in the country. So, according to the most recent surveys and government data, about 99% of Algeria's population identifies as Muslim. Now, when we're talking about a country with a population of around 44 million people, that means we're looking at roughly 43.5 million Muslims. It's an overwhelming majority that shapes virtually every aspect of Algerian society and culture. Now, here's where it gets interesting when we break it down further. Of that 99% Muslim population, the vast majority, we're talking about 99% of those Muslims, are Sunni. Specifically, they follow the Maliki school of Sunni Islam, which is common across North Africa. This means that out of every 100 Algerians you might meet, about 98 would be Sunni Muslims. Shiite Muslims, on the other hand, are a tiny minority in Algeria. We're talking less than 1% of the population. It's hard to get exact numbers because they're such a small group, but estimates suggest there might be around 200,000 to 300,000 Shiites in the country. Many of these are Ibadi Muslims, a distinct branch of Islam that's neither Sunni nor Shiite, but they're often grouped with Shiites in demographic surveys. Now, You might be wondering about the remaining 1% of the population that isn't Muslim. This includes small communities of Christians, mostly Catholics and Protestants, as well as a very small Jewish population. There are also some Algerians who identify as non-religious, although they're a very small minority and often keep a low profile due to social pressures. It's worth noting that these numbers come from official surveys and censuses, and some researchers argue that they might overstate the uniformity of religious belief in Algeria. There could be more diversity in personal beliefs and practices than these figures suggest, but due to social and sometimes legal pressures, people might publicly identify as Sunni Muslim even if their personal beliefs are more complex. Another interesting point is that despite this overwhelming Muslim majority, Algeria's constitution guarantees freedom of religion. However, there are laws that restrict proselytizing by non-Muslims, and converting from Islam to another religion can be socially challenging. So, in summary, when we're talking about Islam in Algeria, we're looking at a country where nearly everyone identifies as Muslim, and almost all of those Muslims are Sunni. It's a level of religious homogeneity that you don't see in many other countries, and it has a profound impact on Algerian society, culture, and politics. All right, let's talk about the daily life of Muslims in Algeria and where they're concentrated. It's a fascinating blend of religious practice, cultural traditions, and modern life. In Algeria, Islam isn't just a religion, it's a way of life that shapes pretty much everything. You'll see it in the rhythm of the day, starting with the first call to prayer at dawn. Many Algerians structure their day around the 5 daily prayers. In cities, you'll hear the call to prayer echoing from mosques, and you'll see people heading to pray, whether in mosques, at home, or even in designated prayer rooms in workplaces. Fridays are particularly significant. That's when many Muslims attend the main weekly prayer at the mosque. You'll notice a lot of businesses closing around midday on Fridays to allow people to attend. It's not just a religious obligation, it's also a social event where people catch up with friends and neighbors. The Islamic calendar plays a big role in Algerian life. Ramadan, the month of fasting, is a major event. Cities come alive at night during this time, with people gathering to break their fast together. Other important holidays include Eid al-Fitr at the end of Ramadan and Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice. Now, when it comes to where Muslims live in Algeria, well, they're everywhere. Remember, we're talking about 99% of the population. But let's break it down a bit. In the northern coastal cities like Algiers, Oran, and Annaba, you'll find a mix of more conservative and more secular Muslims. These cities are more cosmopolitan, with influences from Europe due to their Mediterranean location. Head inland to cities like Constantine or Sétif, and you might notice a more traditional atmosphere. These areas often have strong connections to Islamic scholarship and have been centers of religious learning for centuries. The Kabylie region in the north is interesting because while it's predominantly Muslim, it's also known for its strong Berber cultural identity. Islam here often blends with local Berber traditions. In the Saharan regions to the south, in cities like Tamanrasset or Adrar, you'll find Islam mixed with the traditions of the Tuareg and other Saharan peoples. The Islamic practices here can have a distinct flavor influenced by the desert environment and nomadic heritage. It's worth noting that while Islamic practices are widespread, there's a range of how people observe them. In more conservative areas or families, you might see stricter adherence to Islamic dress codes and social norms. In more cosmopolitan areas, especially among younger people, you might see a more relaxed approach. One thing you'll notice across Algeria is the importance of family and community in Islamic practice. Religious holidays are big family events, and there's a strong tradition of charity and helping neighbors, which is seen as an important part of being a good Muslim. So, to sum up, the daily life of Muslims in Algeria is a rich tapestry of religious observance, cultural traditions, and modern life. While you'll find Muslims throughout the country, each region has its own unique flavor of how Islam is practiced and integrated into daily life. Let's dive into the challenges faced by the Muslim population in Algeria. It's a complex situation that touches on social, political, and economic issues. One of the biggest challenges is the ongoing tension between different interpretations of Islam. You've got more conservative elements pushing for a stricter application of Islamic law, while others advocate for a more moderate, progressive approach. This plays out in debates over things like women's rights, education, and the role of religion in government. Speaking of women's rights, that's a major flashpoint. While Algeria has made strides in gender equality on paper, in practice, many women still face discrimination. There's a push and pull between those who interpret Islamic teachings as supporting traditional gender roles and those who argue for a more egalitarian approach. This affects things like inheritance laws, marriage rights, and women's participation in the workforce. Another big issue is youth unemployment. Algeria has a young population, and many of these young Muslims are struggling to find jobs. This economic frustration can lead to disillusionment and, in some cases, makes people vulnerable to extremist ideologies that promise quick solutions. Religious extremism itself is a significant problem. While the vast majority of Algerian Muslims reject violence, there are radical groups that have caused trouble. The government has been fighting against these groups, but it's a delicate balance. They need to maintain security without infringing on the rights of peaceful Muslims. There's also the challenge of balancing religious identity with modernization. Many Algerians, especially the younger generation, are trying to figure out how to stay true to their Islamic roots while also engaging with global culture and technology. This can create generational conflicts and identity crises. The relationship between religion and the state is another thorny issue. Algeria's constitution defines Islam as the state religion, but there's ongoing debate about what this means in practice. How much should Islamic law influence civil law? Should religious leaders have a say in politics? These are questions that Algerian society is still grappling with. Education is another area of concern. There's a debate about the role of religious education in schools and universities. Some argue for more Islamic content in the curriculum, while others push for a more secular approach. This ties into broader questions about how to prepare young Algerians for a globalized world while maintaining their cultural and religious identity. Let's not forget about freedom of religion. While Algeria is overwhelmingly Muslim, there are small minorities of other faiths. Ensuring their rights and freedoms while maintaining the Islamic character of the state is a challenge. Lastly, there's the issue of corruption. Many Algerians feel that corrupt officials are not living up to Islamic principles of justice and fairness. This has led to protests and calls for reform, often framed in religious terms. All these challenges are interconnected, and they're playing out against a backdrop of economic pressures, political transitions, and global influences. It's a complex situation that Algerian Muslims are navigating daily, trying to find a balance between their faith, their national identity, and the realities of the modern world. All right, let's tackle the question of Islamophobia in Algeria. It's a bit of a unique situation, given that we're talking about a country where Islam is the dominant religion. First off, it's important to understand that Islamophobia in the traditional sense, fear or hatred of Muslims and Islam, isn't really a significant issue in Algeria. With 99% of the population being Muslim, you don't see the kind of anti-Muslim sentiment that you might find in some Western countries. However, that doesn't mean there aren't tensions related to Islam in Algeria. It's just that these tensions take a different form. What we see is more of an internal debate within Muslim society about the role of religion in public life and the interpretation of Islamic teachings. There aren't really organized Islamophobic groups in Algeria, at least not in the way we might think of them in other contexts. Instead, what you might see are secular or liberal groups that push back against what they see as growing religious conservatism. But it's crucial to understand that these groups aren't anti-Islam. They're just advocating for a different interpretation of how Islam should interact with modern society. The Algerian government actually takes a pretty active role in promoting what it calls moderate Islam. They invest in Islamic education and regulate religious discourse to some extent. The goal is to combat extremist ideologies that could lead to violence or social unrest. Some critics argue that this regulation infringes on religious freedom, while supporters say it's necessary for national security. Now, while there isn't widespread Islamophobia, there are some issues that could be seen as discriminatory against certain Islamic practices. For example, there have been some restrictions on wearing full-face veils in certain public settings, which some view as an infringement on religious expression. It's also worth noting that there can be discrimination against religious minorities in Algeria, including small Christian and Jewish communities. This isn't Islamophobia, but it does reflect some of the challenges of maintaining religious pluralism in a predominantly Muslim society. One interesting aspect is the relationship between Islamic identity and Berber identity. Some Berber cultural activists have pushed for greater recognition of pre-Islamic Berber culture, which can sometimes be perceived as challenging the dominance of Islamic culture. But again, this isn't Islamophobia. It's more about balancing different aspects of Algerian identity. In terms of a struggle against Islam, what you see in Algeria is more of a struggle within Islam. There's an ongoing debate about how to interpret Islamic teachings in the modern world, how to balance religious traditions with contemporary human rights norms, and how to address issues like gender equality within an Islamic framework. To sum up, while Islamophobia in the classic sense isn't a major issue in Algeria, there are complex debates and tensions surrounding the role of Islam in society. These discussions are part of Algeria's ongoing process of defining its national identity and navigating the challenges of the modern world while maintaining its Islamic heritage. All right, as we wrap up our journey through the fascinating world of Islam in Algeria, I hope you've gained some valuable insights into this rich and complex topic. From the historical roots of Islam in the region to the modern-day challenges and dynamics, we've covered a lot of ground. If you found this exploration interesting and informative, I'd love for you to be a part of our growing community here on YouTube. By subscribing to this channel, you'll stay up to date with more in-depth looks at religious and cultural topics from around the world. We're always working on bringing you well-researched, balanced, and engaging content. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Your support helps us continue creating content like this and diving into important topics that shape our world. If you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions for future topics you'd like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Your engagement helps make this channel better. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.